Welcome everyone to the Predictive Playbook here at Manny's Pub. And Manny is in the house. I'm told that I might get a slip of paper at the end of the night with a special, I guess he calls it an insider bet. I don't know if I like that insider word, but he's 3-0. So this would be the fourth one. And that'll come at the end of the show. But I have my co-hosts and sidekicks, my two favorite pals in our entertainment business enterprise and conglomerate, because I guess we are a conglomerate because it's three different entities and we're powered by sportsmemo.com and wagertalk.com, so I think that's a conglomerate. But anyway, as an introduction, I want to show you guys something. And I know that's not as scary as when other guys like Tony Finn would say I want to show you something, but this is what I want to show you guys. And we also have Adam Trigger on backstage, and I think he'll be able to see it as well. And then we have Joe D'Amico making a special appearance. So, Joe Ranieri, if you can hear me. So, here we go. I'm going to share a screen, and I think we all know who this is. And I'm going to hit play. And this is obviously Trevor Bauer. And I'm greatly impressed. I am greatly impressed with this man's brain. And maybe he's been a little misunderstood, but nevertheless, I think you're going to see a theme right away of what I see terribly wrong with this substance on the ball and how the penalty is called and da-da-da-da-da. But let's let him talk a little bit about this.
I'm not hearing anything, John. Can you? Is it just?
Oh, you're not?
I'm not. I didn't know if that's me or.
No, I don't hear him either, John.
Huh. I am hearing it. I wonder if anybody in the chat room is hearing it.
I don't know. You probably have to.
Let's ask him.
You're gonna probably have to do like translate. You're gonna have to be the translator. Yeah. Bauer probably.
All right, so let me pause this and get this out of here, and then I'll just give you the. Okay, so this has to do with the substance, and the substance on a baseball, and the fact that there's legally, I don't think there's any way they can keep the players from using sunscreen. Number one. Number two is there's the rosin bag. Number three, there's dirt. Number four, there's pine tar. Yeah, we've all seen hats before where the guy's going like this, and you know we all know it's pine tar. But the one thing we haven't really talked about is back in the old day there was a thing called the spitball, and for people that think I'm kidding, I mean back in the old days they would put just about anything they could find on a baseball to make it either spin faster or the spitball would actually go slower because you have a poor grip. So what Trevor Bauer is talking about is how are they going to enforce this? How is this going to be determined? Because the only way the umpire gets involved, the way I understand it, is a manager says, you know what, he's got stuff on the ball. So he tattletales to the home plate umpire. The umpire calls timeout. He walks. I mean, I can't even picture this happening without almost laughing. The umpire walks out there and says, let me see the ball. And then the ball's looked at, and I don't know whether the umpire throws him out. But how do you guys read this, or have you had time to even look at it? I would recommend that Trevor Bauer video on YouTube. And for anybody that wants the link, I can actually send that right now to the chat room. But I was pretty greatly impressed with this, and we've been hearing that he wants the level playing field. Okay, so he agrees with getting the level playing field, but how do you police it? That's my question to Tony Finn. We'll start with him.
How do you police this?
Does it work?
Well, there's guidelines. There's going to be guidelines. First off, they had, from what I understand, there was all 30 teams had a teleconference on Thursday. I believe that's correct, on Thursday, and they revealed more specifics. Now, how much they revealed to us, or I don't think that was. I don't I didn't hear anywhere where we could listen to that conference calls with all 30 managers. I don't believe Major League Baseball would ever make that public.
No way.
No. But it came in with all 30 managers, general managers, and guess what? As well as umpires. And how you have that kind of a conference call, unless they split it up by team or something, that's a lot of work. It's a lot of that alone. If you could police that, who's talked and who didn't, then I think you probably got the other solved. But in truth is this. Here's what power umpires have. Umpires have the power to eject a pitcher for foreign substance. Guess what? That comes along with an automatic 10-game suspension. Like anything that is on field, be it call it a transgression if you will. I'm going to assume that it's a transgression, okay? Those are all subject to appeal. And I promise you, there won't be one ejection by an umpire which carries that 10-day that will not be appealed. Every single one of them will be appealed. That would be my guess. They'll just be appealed. That would be the union. First off, saying, "Hey, we're going to appeal everything." That's just what we're going to do. Now, there are certain things like you mentioned, John, and I'll try to be brief, but sunscreen might be something that they have a hard time saying. Listen, unless you're pale, completely pale, and have some kind of a gene in you that's related to whatever disease that albinos have, that where they're basically don't have there's certain something missing from what you or I or the average person has. I don't need sunscreen ever. Okay, never. I don't need it, but that doesn't mean I don't want to use it. It's legal to use. Pine tar is a different story, John. If you put pine tar on your hat, then here's what the pitcher's responsibility is, and that is when they leave the dugout to pitch, they have to have a different hat. And pitchers, if they have pine tar all over their uniform, it better be Madison, somebody who can actually swing a bat, who actually is capable and competent at swinging a bat. Because if a pitcher looks like George Brett, with Deckinger behind the plate and Billy Martin, stumbling out of the dugout with a cigarette in his mouth to say, "Hey, listen, that's not works because this and that," then we have an issue. Then you have an issue, and probably I'm going to say they're going to lose that appeal. They're going to lose it because they don't need to have pine tar everywhere. It's just all we're trying to do here. Listen, all we're trying to do here. And I'm not saying the timing's right. I think the timing's absolutely abysmal that they would do this in mid-season rather than before season. So, there's a couple pitchers already have been injured and they're blaming it on having to make adjustments in mid-season or during the season as opposed to during spring training. So, if that makes sense. But in the digital era that we're living in, guys, guess what? Legalities are funny, and unions have a lot of power, at least baseball, football. Those unions have an awful lot of power. So the umpires are going to be under a directive. It better be brazen. It has to be absolutely brazen for them to eject a pitcher, which after that will – anytime there's an appeal, guys, I think you know this, that information, there'll be the media – and other owners and fans will be much more demanding on why was he suspended, and so they have to reveal more information, maybe information that they don't want to. And in truth,
that's true.
In truth, this is really a kind of an in-season facelift, or maybe some stitches, and hopefully a minor skin grafting for the scars that baseball has suffered because of what's going on right now. This is historic.
Oh, it's serious.
It's historic.
We're going to return to this. Sorry, Tony. We're going to return to this topic for Rob Vina, but I want to bring in Joe D'Amico and Adam Trigger at the same time here.
Sure.
Before I do that, I will say this: that I know in my baseball experience, when we saw a pitcher entering a game that had those blotches on the hat. Could be pine tar, might not be. it immediately told us that that's a spin. Back in the day, it wasn't called a spin pitcher, but a breaking ball, curveball specialist. He was not going to get a grip and throw it by you. Mm-hmm. So that was one thing I thought, well, hell, why not just keep it that way? It's an advantage for the hitters, and hitting is pretty piss poor this year.
Right.
But I'm saying that tongue in cheek, but I just don't know, how this is going to unfold. But we'll just have to wait and see. But let's bring on these guys, and then we're going to go back to this topic with Rob Vino after we get Joe D'Amico's
Thank you.
and Adam Trigger's free picks for today. Welcome aboard.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me. I hope everybody had a wonderful Father's Day over the weekend. Had a wonderful weekend. Proud to be here at the start of the week. Thank you for having me.
Hey, I forgot to mention at the top of the show, what a great U.S. Open. I know you guys were like glued to it, and, Nick Borman and I were glued to it.
Las Vegas Chris was here for the final two holes, and he wasn't really that thrilled with the U.S. Open, personally. I think we talked about it, guys.
I kind of know why.
He had a non-major winner. We talked about it on the show. Uzenhausen, I don't know how you pronounce his name, but when's he going to win? Who's
Tazen?
Louise.
John, I barely watch golf, and that's as good as I can remember in the last couple of years in terms of like how interested I was to watch the last 2 or 3 hours of that. So
I don't know if you noticed on the last hole that John Rahm played, because he was not the last pairing. And usually it's the last pairing, one of those two guys wins the event if it's the last day. And on 18, he deliberately came out of that sand trap away from the hole, away from the water, because he knows that course better. His stats on that course are better than any golfer by far, including Mr. Woods. So he takes a shot, and right away the fans are wondering, like, what in the world is he doing? And then I saw it right away. He knew that putt, and he knew the putt was going to break. It broke like 5-6 feet, but it was dead center. And I thought that was amazing to have that kind of courage in that situation. I mean, if I'm at a practice screen, you fool around. But when you're trying to win a major after you just got disqualified for COVID at $1.6 million, to do that and execute it, I thought that was just like way off the charts. And his acceptance speech, I don't know if you guys heard it, but you got to listen to it, because this guy is way more polished than the media gives him credit for. It was just a joy to listen to him speak and humbly and talk about his baby and his wife. And hey, my God, on Father's Day, I mean, it couldn't have been better. So that's all I'm going to say this day for golf, because tomorrow starts a new week and another tournament. So let's start with Mr. Joe, who I had the pleasure on the show today, earlier this morning in our one-on-ones, I guess is what we call it. And he has a free pick for us. So let it rip, Joe.
Well, thanks for having me. Proud to be here with some great guys. Hey, Adam, it's nice to share a panel with you. I've been a fan, but I don't think we've shared a panel yet. So I'm proud to do that. Thanks for having me. I got a quick free winner. I'm going to come in, get out, just like most of my relationships in my life. Today's free winner is in the Reds-Twins matchup. Sports fans, Minnesota has certainly underachieved this season. John and I, Tony and Rob have talked about this a few weeks back. Currently, the Twins are fourth in the AL Central, a record of 30-41. I know they've won 4 in a row, but let's talk about those four victories. One of those games was the final game of the 3-game series in which they lost the first 2 games to who? The Mariners. And then a sweep of the lowly Texas Rangers. Cincinnati sitting at 500, 35-35. Guys, there are only 4 games separate 4 teams in the NL Central. It is as competitive as the AL East right now. It's going to be real dogfights in those two divisions come the second half of the season. Yes, granted, Cincinnati is on a 4-game slide. But looking at those games, they were riding a 13-3 run before falling victim to a striding San Diego Padres team, which they got swept. So I think that the odds makers put this line out because they know that the general public going to open up the newspaper and say, oh, wait, one team has won 4 games, one team has lost 4 games. Let's put a low line on this. I think the line is a little bit low today. Cincinnati owns one of the most dangerous lineups in all of baseball. They rank in the top 10 in every major category: scoring, team batting average, OPS, home runs. This for sure does not bode well for a Minnesota team with one of the poorest pitching staffs in the majors. They rank 27th, ERA of 4.91, team ERA of 4.91. Two pitchers, Tyler Motley, which me and John were laughing today because we can't pronounce his name right. 7-2, 3.39. J.A. Happ, 3-3, 6.12. They're both scheduled here. The Reds have won Motley's last 5 starts and are 11-3 overall in starts this season. In his last 7 turns, Happ has gotten plowed for 35 earned runs and just over 30 innings pitched. The Reds are 5-2 the last 7 meetings in the series. It's a short price to lay on Cincinnati. Don't look at the fact that they lost 4 games and the other team has won 4 games in a row. Look at the people that they played, and I really do like Cincinnati here. I think they turn it around. I think it's a perfect opportunity. This is a team with a very heavy bat, and they're playing a team with a very poor pitching staff. Lay the short price on the Reds here, guys.
Love it. And just go around the horn real quick, like 30 seconds. Do you think the Reds, as I do, are a good futures bet right now? We're almost at the halfway point. 10 more games and we'll be halfway through. They're 35-35, and I agree with Mr. D'Amico about that batting lineup. It's always been great bats, a lot of offense, and just horrible pitching. But now it seems like they have enough, and they're only 4 games behind Chicago, 4 games behind Milwaukee. The question is, do you think it's a good bet, or should I save my money and be able to eat pizza tonight?
Well, I mean, I'll start. I like this Reds team. Now, I think it really depends on what you think of the other teams in the division. Personally, I do like the Cubs, so I don't know if I would jump in on a Reds future right now, but I think the Reds are probably going to play better the rest of the year than they've played to this point. I like the fact that Amir Garrett is starting to get some confidence. He had an awful start to the season out of that bullpen, and he seemed to pitch a lot better of late, which is definitely a key for them. I mean, if their bullpen can improve, that's going to be huge for them, and it looks like it has. And then the lineup is really good. Like Joe pretty much, I won't rehash it because he really just went over it, but they can definitely hit. So I think the Central is close. I think the Cubs are going to win it, but you could, I don't mind the Reds as a potential sort of dark horse option in that division.
Okay. Let's see what Tony Finn has to say.
I said back in February, I said before the season started that I thought this was going to be, I thought that everyone was talking about the National League East being the most competitive division, the best division, should I say, even. They went that far. The Mets made specific moves under new ownership that were looked upon as being over the top, terrific, outrageous, but good. Finally, the Mets are trying to compete, be a team like the Yankees, et cetera, et cetera. I thought that it was going to be a great division race, this Central. Not because any of these teams spend any big money in the offseason, save Nolan Arenado, but because none of them did too much of anything, and they all appeared to be preparing to kind of build or be sellers at the All-Star break. So I think the Cardinals were overvalued. I played them under in the season win total. I've mentioned this many times on the show. And the other day someone asked me, I once was on this show, but I think it may have been, who do I think was going to win? I like the Cubs, despite the fact that I think they let some pieces go. They've had some surprise performances that has kept them right in this race, which I expected everyone to be in this race. The Reds, Castillo. Listen, I played Castillo day before yesterday on Saturday. He got a couple bad bounces. They lose that game 3-2. He pitched pretty well in that one inning. There were some errors that cost them some runs. But long story short is Miley, who's pitching tonight, for instance, he's not only pitched well, 5-0 last 5 starts, 12 strikeouts his last start, as Joe D outlined for us. But his career numbers, again, in a situation like tonight where you're doing interleague, his career numbers, the active hitters on Minnesota, are 1 for 12 against him. And the one hit was a base hit. He struck out 4. He's walked 2 of them. 0.36 batting average, 129 OPS or OBP, excuse me, and a slugging percentage of what? The same as the average because it's got one single, 0.36. The OPS is 164. He's got an advantage first 2 times through the lineup, and Happ isn't very good. The Cubs, though, are the team that I really like in this division. If I didn't like the Cubs, I probably would like the Reds, guys.
I like it. You guys are going to make me spend so much money I won't be able to eat pizza for a week. Rob Vino, is it unanimous?
Yeah, I don't know, guys. I mean, if you analyze the strengths of the 3 at the top, and we'll exclude St. Louis for the time being. I mean, when Jack Flaherty went down probably went their season with it. Although it's hard to ever count the Cardinals out. They just seem to have that magic touch at times. When you think they're done, they're really not done. But I'll say this. I mean, if you're just going to evaluate the top 3 teams, Milwaukee gets it done. They've got the best starting pitching. Let's face it. Nobody else in that division has Woodruff or Burns. And they have back into the bullpen sewn up with Williams and Hader. So they're doing it with starting pitching and relief pitching. The lineup leaves a lot to be desired. The Cubs are doing it with lineup and bullpen that's come really from nowhere. The Cubs bullpen wasn't expected to be this good. They have been this good. Andrew Chafin has brought a lot. The Diamondbacks probably wish Andrew Chafin gave them what he's given the Cubs right now. Craig Kimbrell's been untouchable. And then there's the Reds, who are somewhere in between all of this. Lineup, I don't know that down the stretch I want to count on Wade Miley. Right now they've got a couple of young kids in that rotation. Gutierrez has shown some flashes. Santillan will go, I think, at some point this week. But Wade Miley, Tyler Mahle has actually turned into what I was reading an article last week where I honestly think he's going to become a number 1 ace by definition. So we'll see if that continues to happen. But the bullpen been a little bit shaky. Adam said it best. You need Amir Garrett. If you don't have Amir Garrett, you're in a little bit of trouble. So I don't know. I was on a show with Steve Merril the other day, and I think we both agree that in this division, I think there's still 22-1. If you were going to take a shot at NL futures, you would take your shot with Milwaukee because all they have to do is get there. And if they get there, who wants to face Burns and Woodruff in the back end of that bullpen? Probably nobody, but can they score enough? So I'd probably lean that way, guys. I'd probably lean that way. But you're separating these 3 teams with a sheet of paper, and it's going to depend on trade deadline moves because we know these 3 teams will probably all be active at the trade deadline because they're all going to be in it. And health. Let's face it, health is the biggest concern of all these teams. But I would probably lean Milwaukee at this point in time. And that's not to disagree with what Joe is saying about tonight's game individually because I don't know why this line is set where it is. I mean, I know Minnesota's got a good lineup, good OPS versus lefties and righties, but that staff and J.A. Happ in particular, the bullpen is ridiculous. And I think, Joe, when you were on Friday, I think you played a Twins over. And at that point, the Twins were the number 1 over team in Major League Baseball, 43-22 going into that game on Friday. And because they just don't pitch. That's the bottom line. They hit and they don't pitch. So I agree with the Cincinnati play tonight. If they can get over that San Diego series, which was really some heartbreakers involved there that they lost, then they should be just fine tonight.
I will say, John, if I may, this 4-horse race in the NL Central, and we want to exclude St. Louis for now temporarily. If you just do look at all the teams outside of the Pittsburgh Pirates, who, let's face it, unless Willie Stargell comes back, ain't got a shot at anything. Of those 4 teams, Chicago, Milwaukee, St. Louis, and Cincinnati, there's only one team with a winning road record right now, almost halfway through the season, and that's Milwaukee. Now, I do think Chicago, in past years, Chicago has got to the postseason, but once they get to the postseason, what happens? They lose on the road in the postseason. They're a very, very good team. They have a lot of talent on this team, and God knows they got some of the best fans in the country. But I will tell you right now what makes me lean towards Milwaukee overall in the Central is because they are the only team in that division winning on the road, and you have to win on the road. Last year, a strange year happened. Some strange things happened, obviously, as we know. We don't have to rehash it. Divisions are realigned. Rules have changed. Other things. People didn't know what pitcher was going to start last year. So I think we can't look at last year as a template. I mean, John and I talked earlier today about the Dodgers last year. I think that if it was a regular season, they don't win the West. Or let alone the World Series. A lot of things happened in their favor that favored them. But right now, I really do believe that Milwaukee does have a shot. Rob, I agree with you. Their bats need to step up a bit. But overall, this team is winning on the road. And one thing I do look at them, and this may be a little corny and a little hokey, of the 5 teams in the Central, of the contenders and the 4 teams that do have a shot at winning that division, they seem to take the field every day with an excitement and a fun, and they're enjoying themselves. And at this point, I see some teams that are looking at it strictly as a business angle all over the league that are not having fun, not enjoying themselves. We hear about things on Twitter and on social media that some of these top teams have tension in the locker room. Milwaukee seems to be getting along. You're not hearing too many negative things about them. I think that can go a long way, along with the fact that as of right now, if I had to pick a team, I would take Milwaukee in that division because they are the only team that's winning on the road.
That sounds good, Joe. Sounds good. I know Tony Finn has an appointment.
Yes.
Yeah.
This time it's not with the COVID
IRS.
shot. He's already had his 4th COVID shot, I heard.
Not my parole officer either. I
thought you got rid of him.
He should back up against.
I mean, didn't you tell him you have the ankle bracelet? There's no reason to come around.
Well, that's why he showed up. I took it off. Thought he was gone. No, in seriousness, I want to say one thing. Somebody asked me about Molly, and I want to tell you something. They said, "Is this an aberration? Is this one of those? Is this one of those substances?" No. Listen, he's improved his velocity over the last 3 years. Okay, he's throwing an average about 94, 95 miles an hour. But here's the deal: he struck out those 12 batters last week, or last turn. And if you're looking to find out if a guy's real or not, and whether he's trying to finesse, typically we look at Molly, we might think he's a finesse guy, right? 12 strikeouts, 9 of them with his fastball, 9 of them third swinging or called strikes with a fastball that's 94, 95 means a whole lot. So I'm going to go see the motorologist and find out whether my car is going to, whether I need to go ahead and pay off the arrangements for the plot.
I heard those Ferrari Testarossas take a lot of time in the garage, Tony. So good luck with that.
Yeah, listen, I own my favorite vehicle is my Harley, which is a bike with a little motor on it. It's hardly a bike.
They make. No, I guess they didn't. They never made trucks, but that's in York, Pennsylvania.
What is Harley?
Harley Davidson.
I was making that up. I thought I made it up. Is there a Harley?
Yeah, there really is vehicles with 2 wheels. They're called hogs.
Harleys?
Oh no, well, they're called Harleys sometimes. If you're at a country club, they're called Harleys, and if you're at the local diner, they're called
a
hogs.
Harley.
Listen, I know a couple of 2-legged women out here we call hogs. I'm not going to get into that right now, though.
Yeah, but they don't have 2 wheels.
Joe D's got jokes. Joe D's got jokes.
Oh,
I couldn't help myself.
So, Tony, we don't want to hold you up, and we don't want Amy Agus giving up. She loves the show, and now she might want to retract it, maybe.
Why? What'd I do?
I don't
What'd I
know.
say? I don't know.
Because
It
of
doesn't matter. I'm sure
because of the Harleys.
Oh, the Harleys. No, it's a joke. I have a bike with, really, truthfully, I have a bike with a little motor, and it's called a Harley. I call it a Harley. Somebody said, "What is that?" It's a Harley.
So it's a Kawasaki.
No, it's a bicycle. It's a Schwinn. I put
Dear
a motor
Lord.
on.
Oh, you put the little baseball cards in the wheels, and it makes it sound like an engine.
No. It's truthfully, it's something. It's a Harley. Okay,
I'll have to
it's a
Google
bike
it.
with a little motor, and it does about 25 miles an hour, and that's too fast for me.
It helps if you take your feet off the ground, Tony, and put them on the.
That's how you got to start this. You got to get it going a little bit first, like Fred.
Well, once you get past 25, it's pretty hard to fall off the thing.
Do you think so?
Well, unless a tractor trailer gets in front of you.
Did you not listen to Buster? Am I driving?
Oh yeah, it's true.
Yeah. Hey guys, good to see you. Good luck tonight.
Yep. Have fun tonight. We'll see you tomorrow.
Mr.
Tom,
Trigger.
good
Mr.
luck,
D,
buddy.
and Mr. Mizzou Tiger. Have a great day.
Take care, buddy.
See you guys.
And we have the best combination of personalities on the planet.
My God. Hey, John, real quick, because Joe triggered a thought in my head when he started talking about home road. We generalize about how good the Cincinnati offense is, but they're taking advantage of that ballpark that they play in. That's a number one team in Major League Baseball in OPS at Great American Ballpark, which is, not unlike Camden Yards and Citizens Bank and Fenway Park in the fact that it's a bandbox. And they've got their lineup tailored for that park. And when you check them on the road, they're in the 20s OPS on the road. So let's see if they're not just a product offensively of that ballpark, or if they can turn it on the road and hit just the same, because while it's not to the extent of the Colorado Rockies, it's still something to be concerned with, the fact that that team could be that drastically different home and road with their offense.
Love it. Love it. I do want to get back to the substance thing, but Max on record here, one of our loyal followers. Well, he's going to bash our boy DeChambeau for shooting a 44 on the back nine. He was actually leading the U.S. Open on the 10th tee and proceeded to shoot a 44. But I can tell you this: I heard a lot of it, and I will call them idiots, non-knowledgeable people of golf, say, "Oh my God, I could shoot a 44." Well, if you had to count every stroke and play by the rules and inflict the penalties that you get for knocking it out of bounds, for example, into a canyon, very few, even single-digit golfers would break 100. Maybe a few single digits would have broken 100 on that course, but I can say this: handicap under 10, they would not have broken 100 all 4 days. How's that? So I feel for them when it goes bad. And he had a quad. He had the infamous snowman, which is an 8, which when you put it on a golf cart looks like a snowman. I guess that's how I came up with it. But when you get that on a par 4 and it's the 17th hole, and you're already 4 over on the back, it's never been good. So hopefully, as polarizing as the guy is, he doesn't get too bashed, because I don't like that. As much as I said this, just for clarification, I put this up here. This is, and you guys know how I think. The glass is more than half full until the last swallow. But no, that's the wrong one. Here. Where do I have it here?
Hey John, while you're looking for that, how about anyone that had like a DeChambeau top 20 ticket, or
Yep.
Tough day.
I think Tony Finn and I know somebody that did. But Ron was just unbelievable. Now I did have that scrolling across the screen. What happened to it with Doc Rivers? I'm trying to find it. Banners. Oh, here it is. Oh, it's already scrolling across. That's why I can't see it. So this sounds like I'm bashing him, right? Doc Rivers, 29 losses with a chance to clinch a playoff series. So it's an elimination game. Could be game 4 if he's up 3-0. It's not just game 7s, obviously. So that's the most losses in head coach in NBA history. 341 win percentage is the worst all time with 20 or more games. I kind of look at that and think that you still want him to be the coach because he's gotten there so many times. And sooner or later, you keep knocking on the door, and even though this was horribly bad last night, success is going to happen. And I think it would really stink for the Sixer fans, just 24 hours out of this, that they would view trading Simmons, say, to the Lakers for next to nothing as a good thing. And I think it would really come back to haunt them. And if they... Rivers is only in the first year of his contract, for goodness sake, and now you want him out of town. I just think it would be a big mistake. And that's my personal feeling on that.
I agree with you, John. I always think coaches take too much blame in spots like the playoffs. I want to blame a coach 2 months into the season when the team, let's blame Torrey Pines right now or something, when the team is just a complete mess. But like you said, like Doc Rivers gets his teams there. I mean, he's not on the floor making shots. Like at some point, there's the Sixers had every chance to win that game. They had every chance to win the game they lost a couple nights before. Like at some point, the blame has to be on the guys on the court failing to execute and failing to get the job done. So I think it's easy sometimes to blame a coach. And I think it's easy to blame Rivers because he's got a little bit of a history of his teams underachieving in these spots. But I'm not a big fan of, after a 7-game series when, guys just didn't make plays. Like to me, I want to blame the players in that scenario. Like they're the ones executing. They're on the floor. It wasn't like an egregious coaching decision. So I'm not a big fan of when coaches sort of take the fall for these shortcomings in the playoffs, because specifically in the playoffs, because it's magnified. So it's just on a, there's more eyes on it. It's magnified. And I feel like coaches take the blame a lot when they don't necessarily deserve it after like what we saw happen in Hawks 76ers.
Yeah, I agree with the exception that you may not have heard this, or maybe you did. Doc Rivers really threw Ben Simmons to the wolves in the press conference badly.
I didn't see the press.
It could have been handled a whole lot different, whole lot better. And, then I started thinking that, you know what, buddy, you're saying this about your player. Why didn't you have this corrected months ago when you already knew he struggled with free throw shooting and work with him? I mean, we saw him on video. I saw him live make 12 three-pointers in a row before a game. Now, granted, when somebody's running at you, it's different. But the guy's 240 pounds and 6'11". Something is not right there. And, as you can imagine, when I had Mr. D'Amico on this morning, and being that his name ends in an O, and talking about family, he summed it up pretty darn well, didn't you, Joe?
I did. And we did talk. Maybe we got preemptive strike. Doc Rivers was a Class A player. And I think that, and I agree a lot with what Adam said, but I do want to say that for him to come out and just throw Ben, I mean, he threw him to the wolves.
Could have done it in game one.
The thing of it is, listen, let me just go. I'm Sicilian, so I'm going to go close to my heart. In Godfather 1, when Marlon Brando pulls James Caan to the side, he's, what are you doing? You never talk to anybody outside the family about family business. If he, take it and shut up. You lost it. Next year you're going to be in the playoffs again. Fine. Just, I think that it was a little classless. Maybe with some frustration. Maybe he's looking to save his job. We don't know what happened behind the scenes there. We really don't. But I will say that I don't think that it's right. What you do in the locker room is a lot different than what you tell the press, particularly in today's day and age, where, he threw him right under the bus. No, Ben Simmons could have played a little bit better. His numbers could have been a little bit better. I think the team overall somebody could have stepped up. But to be honest with you, you don't listen. With John and I, Rob, Adam, we were talking today. Every family has a relative that you can't invite for Christmas dinner. We get it. All right? We all have one relative. But we never tell anybody else outside the family about that relative. It just doesn't happen. For what Doc Rivers did, I think it was classless. Maybe it was a little, frustration because they were the top seed. They're supposed to go to the NBA Finals, and they fell short to a team that really doesn't have as many superstars or big names. But I thought it was a little classless, and I don't want to blame Doc Rivers for the entire problem or why they lost. But he's got to take a little bit of the blame. And obviously, unless you know something we don't, and Ben Simmons is going to be gone next year wearing maybe a Knicks uniform, I don't think he should have. I don't think he should have did in any case. But I don't see him. I can't justify what he said and what he did.
I missed the press conference. I'm not about that. Okay. So I don't agree with that one bit. I don't like that he did that. But I was just talking generally.
No, I agree. Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah.
I agree with you. You can't, and he can't take all the blame. I agree with you 100%, Adam. You can't blame it all on Doc Rivers. That's it. I mean, if you really want to do that, then you got to blame other guys on the other coaches and people in the office, in the front office. But no, strictly from what he did and how he badmouthed them. The only thing I could come up with to try to justify, because I like Doc Rivers. I thought he was a class player. I really did. I got to meet him once or twice back in the day, and And I will tell you, I thought he was a class guy, but maybe, barring frustration, I just don't see how he did or why he did what he did.
I hope it was frustration. I know Rob Vino probably heard the statements that were. He was even asked the question, "Is Ben Simmons your point guard next year?" And he flat out said, "I can't answer that." And then I react to that probably like most sports fans would with, wait a minute, you were playing in the semifinals of the Eastern Conference and a guy starting for you, you didn't know whether he was your point guard? Let's see. Let's go back to, what was it, Game 5 or Game 4 against the Wizards, and Simmons played center and had an unbelievable game. I didn't get that comment at all, that he couldn't just... I understand the frustration, 24 hours out, you're pissed, I get it. But then when you start pointing the finger at other people and then saying that, well, hell, the guy cooking in the kitchen, I don't know if he's even a cook anymore. I just didn't care for that too much. But any takeaways, Rob?
Well, specifically, he was asked if Ben Simmons can be the point guard on a championship team, not just for his team. And that's when he said,
"Yep,
I don't have the answer to that yet." And, Doc Rivers wasn't alone. Joel Embiid threw him under the bus worse than Doc Rivers did. Joel Embiid called him out for the turning point of the game. He didn't say Ben Simmons, but, he basically told you that he thought when he turned and had a dunk and was afraid that he was going to get fouled by Trae Young, a guy who's about 5'11", 140, soaking wet. You're supposed to take the ball if you're Ben Simmons and dunk the ball and Trae Young through the net both at the same time. But he's scared. He's
that was
scared
bad
to be fouled. And John, it's you love your pie charts. If you had a personal Ben Simmons pie chart, 95% of that pie chart would be good, but the 5% is what we've been talking about and harping on this show. What are you going to do in a meaningful game in the last 5 minutes when it's close and you have this nitwit on the floor and he's useless to you? He's absolutely useless. He couldn't play the last minute, 5 seconds. That'd take about 4. This guy makes super max money. Actually, Tobias Harris makes more than him, amazingly, by a couple of million. But this guy makes super max money, and you can't play him because he's too scared. He played 4-on-5. We've been saying it the whole time. To be critical of Ben Simmons' entire game, like a lot of Philadelphia is wrong. You have to admit what he does good. But what he does bad gets you knocked out of the playoffs.
Yeah,
that's what it is. And you
exactly
can't have it.
Rob, I'm sorry. Wouldn't that now then fall, because John and I touched on this, wouldn't that now fall on Doc Rivers and the coaching staff? Because this isn't a brand new occurrence. It's not like the playoffs came and he lost his juice. This is something that you had to see signs of through the season and behind the scenes. Now we got to look at the coaching staff, I believe, maybe.
Well, 2 answers to that, Joe. Number one, Philadelphia 2 years ago brought in a shooting coach specifically for Ben Simmons in the offseason. And that was when Brett Brown was the head coach. And the organization basically demanded that Ben Simmons work through the offseason with this shooting coach. This was identified 3 years ago. The guy's afraid to shoot, he can't shoot, whatever. And Ben Simmons' answer at the time was, no thanks. I work out at home in Australia with my brother and my father. And he just flat out didn't do what the organization wanted, which at that time turned the city on him immediately, because Philadelphia is different than being in Sacramento or New Orleans or Orlando, somewhere where the media doesn't really ride your ass, Charlotte, and the fan base doesn't ride you the way this one does. So when he comes back and 2 years later, he's not a better free throw shooter than he was at LSU. This is 5 years into the league. He's no better than he was at LSU. He's no better shooting the basket. He's probably more scared to shoot the basketball now than he was at LSU. It's a problem. But it's a problem that Philly's stuck with. And I'll say this, Joe, because both of you guys, you and John, bring up the point, well, why doesn't Doc Rivers do something about this 5 months ago? I want to tell you this quote from today that I came across from Doc Rivers. This cracks me up. Doc Rivers, specifically, here, I'm going to read it word for word for you guys, because this, to me, is unbelievable. After being here for 1 year, I really do believe that we've now identified what and how and now we have to do the do part. We have to work to do it. It's not going to be an easy job, but it's definitely a job that Ben can do. We've identified the problem. I think we can fix it. Are you kidding me? Wow. Now that you sat on the bench for a year, you figured out that Ben Simmons can't shoot, that he's afraid to shoot. What kind of idiot are you? Yes. And, John, going way back to your other point about if you bang on the door, eventually success happens. Listen, Doc Rivers showed us success. He won with the Boston Celtics in 2008. You know what it took to win with that team? If you consider Rajon Rondo a Hall of Famer, it took 4 Hall of Famers in your starting lineup.
Yeah.
Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, Ray Allen, Rajon Rondo. He can win with that. Anything less, he's showing us he can't win with. Okay. And I think Tony Finn makes the greatest point of all, and he's been harping on it forever. He's more cheerleader than X's and O guy. I saw some not Philadelphia 76ers guys, some ex-players who played for Doc Rivers in various places. I don't know. It's probably sour grapes, but just shredding him for in-game adjustments. And I don't want to ride him that hard because I think he's stuck with a piece that just breaks the entire car. It's like that car becomes a lemon because Ben Simmons is on the floor with 4 minutes left. But they're stuck with him, guys. You go through their salary cap. Last night, as soon as the game ended, Sixers social media was going crazy. Get rid of him. And there was one thought that made kind of sense. You could trade him to Houston in return for John Wall because the contracts match up. And, I think at this point the Sixers fans would love John Wall, adore John Wall compared to Ben Simmons. But after seeing what I've seen today, they're going to keep what they have and see if they can fix it. And what, I don't know about you three guys, but what have your eyes shown you that makes you believe after 5 years this is going to get fixed? I just don't know that this ever gets fixed. And Joel Embiid's window is closing, guys. Joel Embiid doesn't have this 10-year window to win a championship.
He's taking a beating.
His health-wise he's got maybe 3 years. Let's go get this guy some stuff.
His health might have cost him this series if you think about it. As soon as he started to kind of decline health-wise, I want to say it was game 3 when he went 0 for 12 in the second half at one point. I mean, that's kind of what turned this series a little bit for the Hawks. So yeah, I would definitely agree with that.
Yeah, they
keep going, Adam, if you want. I'm just showing this because I tweeted this morning. I mean, the body language.
Yeah,
I want Rob.
That was the dunk that should have been was a non-dunk.
I would just real quick, Adam. I would just say this: the guy played through torn meniscus. I think some of the coaching decisions were bad, especially in the 26-point blown lead games. Yeah. John, we talked about it a little bit. How does Joel Embiid come out? Which game was that? Game 5 in Philadelphia that they blew the lead, right? Joel Embiid starts the game 7 for 8 from the field, and 6 of those 7 are basically dunks or shots within 4 feet of the basket, and that's where you love to see him against a little team like the Atlanta Hawks. And then when push came to shove in the final 5.5 minutes of the game, he's shooting the basketball, jump shots outside the paint, 3-pointers, and it makes no sense to me why when you're trying to close a game out with an 11-point lead with 4 minutes left, you only need a couple of possessions, and he shoots great free throws. Just park him down in the paint. Last night, guys, he's taken some heat too. I saw some people critical of Joel Embiid last night when he said that the turning point was Simmons not dunking and them only getting 1 free throw, right? That's what Embiid considers the turning point.
Yeah, wasn't it? Game.
Joel has been criticized for turning the ball over about a minute and a half later. But again, who in their right mind, you three guys play coach with me. You play coach. Who in their right mind passes the ball to a 7'2", 270-pound guy at the top of the 3-point circle and says, go ahead, create, which is what he did. He started at the top of the circle. He got into his dribble. He makes a spin move. The dribble is so high, it's up to his chest, and he gets stripped. I mean, what do you expect? You can't coach like that. I mean, I'm not an NBA coach, but I can tell you right now, I'm not calling that. Let's feed Joel at the top of the 3-point circle and let him drive to the hole. It ain't happening. So there's a lot
not
of
in that situation
here. No, in any situation, John. I mean, yeah, he had an open court coast to coast where nobody was in his way, and he jammed, and the place went berserk. And within 35 seconds of them going berserk, they gave up 3 hoops to the Hawks, and they were down 5 again. So, I mean, when it comes to crunch time in the playoffs, that's what it's all about, right? The first 43 minutes, we don't care in a close game. It's like Trae Young last night was brutal for 43 minutes of that game. I think he was, like 3 for 21 shooting the basketball. But then in the final 5 minutes, he scores like 8 points and has a great assist, and his team wins. That's what you're graded on in those types of games. And Philly has expectations of winning an NBA championship. And the difference was shown last night. They have Trae Young, you have Ben Simmons. Now what? Case closed. Case closed. The other team's moving on. Even Giannis is not afraid. Giannis would have dunked that basketball, guys, and Trae Young would have been feeling his tailbone for the next hour and a half. So, and that's the difference. I mean, it's crazy that could be a number 1 draft choice. But again, they had 2 number 1s back-to-back. They came away with Markelle Fultz and Ben Simmons. Boston had the 3s in those drafts, and they came away with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown.
Amazing.
Yeah, that's pretty ugly.
The organization has a little bit to do with it too, right? I mean, there's blame to go around.
Yep.
And I don't know if Adam and Joe were on the show when I said back in the 80s when my Wall Street career started, there was a book by Tom Peters, In Search of Excellence, mainly about corporations and what makes them successful, and also some sports. And the general theme is the character of an organization takes on the character of its leader. You can go from the President of the United States, where there was finger pointing, to a guy like Reagan who never took off his jacket in the Oval Office. But being serious about it, I mean, I always go back to that because there's something wrong at the top of the Sixers when your product performed as badly as it did. And he's had several, sequel books after that are worth reading if you're in that kind of thing. But it definitely applies to sports, no doubt about it. You look at the 49ers organization, you look at that management when they were winning. Steinbrenner, whether you liked him or not, the guy was one of the first owners to take his profits and put it back into his baseball team and not the other 5 companies that he owned that were struggling to be profitable. And you cannot condemn him for that. A lot of people don't like it. He tried to buy the World Series. Well, guess what? He's a businessman. He wanted to win. And, we can go on and on with every single... look at the Patriots. You may not like Kraft, but, at the top is the best. And a lot of times those guys are not on the field. They're not seen on TV. But there's definitely something awry in Philadelphia. That's for sure. So I'll leave it with that. Let's go to... our final best bets, and I'll actually start. How's that? And Joe, you have played. You can stay, right, or do you have to take off?
I've got a few minutes. I wanted to sit around.
We'll go to you right after this.
I'm anxious to see what Adam had to say. I wanted to stick around because I've never shared a panel with him, but I'm glad I did because I picked up some great. I appreciate you, Rob, for what you contributed just now. That quote that you remembered and read, and that really. It rang true and it's getting me to think about a few different things about the Philadelphia organization. But I wanted to stick around.
That's pretty.
I also wanted to stick around so we could get a word in because Tony's gone now.
Well, if Tony would have heard that quote, we would have been on till at least 7 o'clock.
I love Tony. Hey,
it took him a year to realize that. See, that was the first part of that horrid statement. Right. It took you a year as the head of an NBA coach to realize you. How was that again, Rob? You have the what?
Well, now that he's been there a year, they've identified what the proper work to be done is. Are you kidding me? I mean, to me, it sounds like a lot of hogwash. Again, defending the guy. Doc Rivers, maybe last night he threw him under the bus, but he has gone out of his way multiple times to defend this guy to the media. But you can't do anything but laugh at that statement, guys. That's hysterical. I got to stop. It's not good. It's not good.
Simmons had a 40-point game, 40-point triple-double, matter of fact. And he is 11th on the all-time list in triple-doubles. I mean,
I would hope, guys, honestly, I would hope that the kid would go to work and come back next year and prove everybody wrong. I really hope
Yeah.
he would, because
Yep.
Philadelphia's a championship team with him in that capacity.
He would become a legend. He would be loved forever if he
Without-
came back and did that. That's how the Philly fans are.
So we'll see. We'll give him the benefit of the doubt for the time being,
Yep.
but we'll see.
Now he has to deliver it, or
Right.
he'll never be loved.
And well, they're all on the line, John. They're all on the line. I
Yep.
mean, it would be a complete cleaning. Doc would be gone. The whole shooting match would be gone. And
I mean,
Joel,
back to the process again.
and Joel might punch the guy on the floor.
New
one night.
process, basically.
Oh, I tweeted something today that I guess was the closest I've ever tweeted being upset, was that the Sixers' number one task now that the season is over is to change the stupid hashtag from "Here They Come" to "The process doesn't work."
Yeah,
I thought that was pretty good.
Hey, John,
my
real quick. No,
Go ahead.
real quick. I just want to say this real quick because you were talking with Tony about the substance. I'm just going to point this out real fast. 5:10, about 10 minutes ago Eastern time, the Mets and Braves started. Jacob deGrom was the first pitcher to be checked for substance. Walked out onto
Are
the
you
hill.
kidding me?
And they checked him. Every starting pitcher gets checked. Relief pitchers will be checked. So deGrom was checked. The Brave pitcher was checked. And real quick, back to Trevor Bauer. Even though we couldn't hear the audio when you were trying to play it, I did hear his sort of reasoning, or his solution. Let's put it that way. His solution was, and you know what? It might sound a little far out, but I can't say that he's wrong. He wants to have a conveyor belt at all 15 home stadiums each night, all 30 stadiums over. He wants to have a conveyor belt with a bucket of balls at the top that go down the conveyor belt. They're sprayed with the sticky substance of the league's choice at that point in time. And then they're put into a bucket and they're put into play, and they're changed every 3 innings. A new bucket comes out so that it's fair for everybody. Now, Major League Baseball responds by saying, we've tried to put a sticky substance on the ball. The problem is all pitchers can't agree. All pitchers can't agree which one it should be. If only they could get to it. But Bauer, to me, makes a lot of sense. At least he's willing to say, let's do it this way. Let's have all the balls the same and give us pitchers a chance, and we'll go from there. So that's all I wanted to say about that.
And that's a great point, Robin. A lot of people, including the guys and gals in our chat room, might not even know this, that if you touch a brand new baseball, it is slippery. It is very slippery. And the way they were, even at the collegiate level, umpires would get the new balls, and they would rub dirt and sand on them to scuff them up just enough so that they wouldn't be so slippery with the leather. The leather or the cowhide, whatever it is around a baseball, you touch a new baseball and you can barely throw it. So the idea of a conveyor belt and what you just said makes total sense. And I don't know why that can't be adopted, because that would obviously maybe they should consult the New England Patriots, because then they have a problem with ball deflations and stuff. It just seems so, man. It reminds the whole thing reminds me of George Brett coming flying out of the dugout with the pine tar was too high on his bat. By what? What was it? I guess it was proved that it wasn't too high. Or it was too high, and there was 300 other batters that had it the same height.
Yeah, but you got to understand something else. That was just the encore of a 7 or 8 year real bad blood between the Royals and the Yankees.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true.
The third ones, Thurman Munson got into it with a couple of guys.
Yep.
I mean, they really were, because the Red Sox were losing those years. It really was the Royals and the Yankees. Really, there was some bad blood there. So that just added and heightened the drama. So
and the good old Phillies in 1980 came in to separate those two in the World Series, if you might remember. And the Phillies then they were like the prep boys of the league back in 1980. Everybody was well groomed. It was just awesome. Steve Carlton. Who else was on that team? Tug McGraw.
Yeah,
that was the heartthrob. Yeah, Pete Rose.
Absolutely.
I guess he wasn't really a prep guy, but
Mike Schmidt.
Yeah.
Schmitty.
Bob Boone, I think, was a catcher.
Sure.
Gary Maddox.
And it's bad to say, but those teams of that era, and this is maybe something. Adam is probably too young to picture this, but in the clubhouses, there was a bowl of greenies, and it was help yourself, and it was amphetamines, and it was legal. And then they realized that, holy cow, it's making people too hyper. And they outlawed it. So I guess it's the course of evolution of every sport. If like Tony Finn says, if everybody's cheating. If you're not cheating, you're not going to win. And as bad as that sounds, you push the envelope to that line, and sometimes you get caught crossing the line. And then the rules change. So then, guys who were taking steroids legally in the early 90s suddenly were outlawed. So it's just that.
John, if I may, I'm only going to mention a name because he outwardly speaks about this everywhere. I got to know Jose Canseco out here. He's a Vegas resident. And he said outwardly, so I'm not outing him. I would never do that. I'm not a rat or a tattletale. I'm from the Lower East Side of Manhattan, Little Italy. But I don't out anybody. But what he told me, and he says, I'm still doing it. He says, look at me. I don't have an ounce of fat on me. I'm 275 pounds. He said, but I want you to know. He said, I would say over 95% of the league is juicing. It's just that they're on to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And they're ahead of the testing situation. They're just ahead of it. And I want to tell you this, though. I'm not a dreamer. I'm a realist. I get it. But I'd like to think that most of the league is in juicing, but it's so hard to really. But Canseco said straight out, and this is what he says it outwardly too. I've read it. I've seen him say it. I've seen him say it in the show that he had here at Caesars 2 years ago. He says they are so far ahead of the testing situation. He said if the testing catches up, they're going to be 2 steps ahead again. And just that's the paraphrase, but I think it's sad. I think it's sad if that really is the situation. I'd like to think that there's a couple of guys. To me, if I ever found out Mike Trout was juicing, I might give up watching and loving baseball. It would break my heart. I mean, if he's a non-Yankee, and for me to love a non-Yankee, I love that guy. I think he's just an all-out great ball player, an advocate for the game, an advocate for sports. And if I find out he's juicing, I might give up. I might turn in my cleats and jockstrap. It would break my heart. It would break my heart. But I kind of think that there are just some guys. Listen to me. You can't. If Babe Ruth, Mickey Mantle, Willie Mays, the greatest all-around players, Joe DiMaggio, if these guys today, they drank, they partied, they had a good time, they still came to the ballpark hung over and banged balls and ran from home to first. Mantle, the fastest home to first in the history of the game. It would break my heart. It really would. Granted, steroids were not around back then. They drank. They had fun. They fornicated. They had fun. They enjoyed life, and that's what they should do, But I would hate to think that everybody in this league is juicing. I really do.
I would agree with you. I don't agree with that statement. Actually, I have no reason to disagree with Jose Canseco, but I can tell you this. I always thought and kind of fantasized, what if Twitter and social media existed when Mickey Mantle was at his prime? Would we have those accounts? Yes, we would.
My father was a union boss in the newspapers in New York, and he had a union meeting, and Mickey Mantle was the only non-Yankee, the only Yankee that didn't sleep with the team. He lived, I did want to say the Park Sheridan. I want to say the Park
It was a penthouse.
My father went and saw. This is a true story, Rob. Adam, you'll love this. Then I'll get out of your hair.
The Ritz.
My father saw Mickey at like 11 o'clock in the morning stumble out of a cab, fall, go into the hotel. He was in a meeting in the Park Sheridan. Stumble back out a half an hour later. My father says he bet 2 weeks' paychecks against the Yankees. Mantle went 4 for 5 with 2 home runs and a triple and a double or something. He says he had like 6 or 7 RBIs. He says, that's it. I'm done, he said, my father. So that goes to show you the type of guys. Mantle tore an arm. He hit a home run 500 feet with one arm. The guy was a monster. Some guys are just born to do this, And I hope, and I agree with you, I hope that not everybody is juicing. There are some guys, that are just born to do this. And you got to understand, the training facilities, the technology of watching the speed and learning pitchers and batters' tendencies are so far ahead of where they were 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago. It's just great. And if you do sustain an injury, the rehabilitation process is so much better. The medical profession is so much better. I don't want to think that they all are. I'd like to disagree with Jose Canseco, but he's very adamant about it.
And by the way, man who lived at the Ritz.
The Ritz. There you go.
I'm almost positive it was the Ritz. It was the top floor penthouse.
All right.
So it had a special entrance, too, for his guests, which were numerous from what we hear. But I'm going to start us off here, and we have our work cut out because look at Amy here, who I think we're honored to have her as a new follower here and a new loyal viewer. But I mean, Dave Koken's service she has in pocket, so we better go 4-0 or else, I guess. But my free play here is the Cleveland Indians. So we have these guys, and Rob, I struggle with names, especially when it's hockey and it's the non-American Russian names. But Aaron, it's Savali, right?
It is.
Okay, so I did get that right. So this guy doesn't throw a changeup. He's one of the few pitchers in Major League Baseball that does not throw a changeup, but he throws an assortment of splitter, cutter, curve, slider, and a sinking fastball that when he's on, you're going to see the Cubs hit a lot of ground balls because it hammers the right-handed batters on the hands, and it's very heavy. When he is on, it's like it's cement. Like he has a substance on the ball. Yeah, I don't know that. But anyway, we're going to bet on favorites, bet against favorites between minus 125, minus 175. Last I looked, this game was right in the middle, around 145. And our dog, who we're betting on, is coming off a win, getting only 4 hits. You would think that's the Mets, for goodness sake. The favorite is on a great fielding streak of 15 or more games, committing no more than 1 error in each. 30-20 record last 5 seasons, but by averaging basically a 145 dog, it's produced a 17% ROI. Run line's even better, 66% winning bets, 33-17 run line record, $1,850 for that disciplined $100 better, and a 28% ROI. And that says bet on the Cleveland Indians, and I like this Aaron Savali a lot, and I think it's cool that he doesn't throw a changeup. Let's move on to we're gonna have Adam's free pick become his best bet. We'll go to Adam here for 2.5 minutes, and then we'll go to Rob Vino, and then who else better to have finish this up than Joe D'Amico? Because guys, this morning I didn't even have to close the show. I mean, he did it for me. I just hit end broadcast and we were done. But we'll take like 2.5 minutes here for the remaining free picks, and we'll start with Adam.
Yeah, so my free pick is my best bet. It's my only play for Monday. It's a 4-unit play. It's in Major League Baseball, and so it kind of segues back into the substance thing that you kicked off the show with. So I'll kind of get right into it. So I'm on the over in Brewers Diamondbacks tonight. It's over 9.5. And I'm a little disappointed that I wasn't feeling well on Friday and missed Manny's Pub, because I was going to come on and sort of talk about how I wanted to target overs going forward, but not just any ones. And I'll give you the kind of criteria that I'm looking for. And this kind of goes off of what Joe was saying, where a few years back, everyone was doing something. Whether it was steroids, HGH, whatever it was. And I really think the substances that were going around is a widespread thing too. Now, I think the way that the masses are going to look at this is it's going to affect the guys that are pitching really good. Like, we've already heard Glasnow's on the DL, and we've heard, we saw Garrett Cole. Now, he's bounced back since, but he had a rough outing. So, and I'm not going to target the elite pitchers, because I think the elite pitchers are going to find a way around it. I think they're still elite pitchers, and they're going to find a way to be great. But to me, I think it's going to really affect the guys that are, maybe in the mid-4s with the ERA, and they're just kind of holding on. If they were using some sort of substance to just sort of stay in the league, if you will, these are the ones that I kind of want to target in where I'm going to try to play over. Now, I think overs in general are going to be a good bet in just kind of going forward. until the books swing the prices in so far in one direction, because batting average is up across the league in the last couple weeks, and it's also it's getting warmer out, so I think batting average might have increased anyway. But I've got one I really like tonight. I've got one I really like tonight in this Brewers Diamondbacks game. Let's look at the two starters. We've got Merril Kelly for the Diamondbacks. Nothing special here. I mean, this was a guy, he didn't make his MLB debut until he was 30 years old. I think he kind of had a better than expected season in 2019. Last year, we only saw him for 5 starts, so it's a really small sample. This year, I think he started to regress back toward what he was always supposed to be. And that's a guy with an ERA in the 5s. He comes in with a 5.40 ERA. He's been hit pretty consistently. I want to say, and I don't have. I wrote if you want the specifics, they're on my Sports Memo page, and you can find them at Top Flight SI, because I did release the write up for this one for free. But he's given up 3 or more earned runs, and I want to say 6 of his last 7 starts. And pretty much every start, he's given up something. And the Brewers just saw him a couple weeks ago. I love the familiarity there. They hit him when they saw him a couple weeks ago, and the Brewers saw the Diamondbacks a couple weeks ago in the 4-game series and averaged 5.25 runs a game. Kelly also hasn't pitched deep in his last couple starts. The Diamondbacks bullpen is one of the worst in the league. They just had to deal with the Dodgers all weekend. So you're probably going to have some tired arms in that bullpen as it is. So I think the Brewers will do their part, but I think the what makes this play for me is I definitely think Arizona is going to do their part here as well. Brett Anderson, 4.24 ERA, and he's always kind of been to me like one of those guys where I look at and say, oh, but he's got really good stuff. Like he's okay, but he's got really good stuff. I'm wondering if those are the guys that this is going to really affect. He was awesome last time out against the Reds, but other than that, he's been okay. The Diamondbacks also just saw him in that series, and he really didn't pitch well. I think 4.1 innings, gave up 8 hits, 3 runs. And he's had a couple short outings lately. And the what I'll use to drive this home, we talk about Josh Hader, and he's awesome. And he might be the best reliever in baseball. But this Brewers bullpen, when you take him out of the equation, is really not that good. I mean, they'd probably be a bottom 3rd bullpen in the league when you take Josh Hader out of the bullpen, meaning you take his stats out, and they're probably around 20th in ERA. Like there would be a bottom 3rd bullpen in the league. You're at Chase Field, which is notorious for being a great hitter's park. I would have expected this number would have been at least 10. I think there's a little value with over 9.5. So I'm gonna play for runs here, and I'm gonna go over in Brewers Diamondbacks tonight.
Sounds good. And trivia question for you guys. You can't look this up, and it's only going to take a second. Arizona's lost 17 in a row, right? On the flip side of it, there's 3 teams that their longest losing streak is only 3 games. Can you name them?
Oh, this year? You mean their longest?
So far this season, their longest losing streak has only been 3 games.
I mean, one would have to be the Giants, right?
Correct.
Yeah,
that's the easy one.
And I'm thinking, I know the other one. I'm trying to think of the third one now.
Have the Astros lost more than 3 straight?
Yes.
They have. Okay.
I do believe.
Probably in April at some point.
The second one is the Red Sox.
Oh, that makes sense.
And I had to do the trivia because I saw the guy down in the right-hand corner with that New Yorker jersey on. Yeah, just a little rub.
See, I could have taken a shot just because I love to say the Red Sox anything negative about them. I could have taken a shot and got that right. I could have been on Jeopardy and got that one right. I guess, but thank you. Please go on, John.
Well, I'm going to let Rob do his free pick, and then I'll give you the third one. Because I'm, now that I'm 50, what's the name of this show again? All right, Rob, give us your free pick tonight, because this is probably the one that we're all going to be tailing.
Yeah, I mean, and the card to me, John, honest to God, I didn't even play for clients tonight, but something I played personally, and it's just a mechanical move on my part that I try to play all the time, is the Astros against lefties. And I just don't like to lay wood, and they're $1.60, $1.70, whatever they are. And I'm just not in the market of doing that. But I chop them down all the time with run line because they can cover up things for you. Now, I'm a little bit afraid of their bullpen, rightfully so. But Baltimore's bullpen is no great shakes either. So the decision comes, do you want to take Jake Odorizzi in the 5-inning line and lay half a run? Or do you want to trust the full game and figure that the Astros just keep scoring all the way through and win the full game? So that's the route I went here. You have to lay 15 cents minus 1.5 runs, but I do believe you're going to get the 9 at-bats out of Houston. You put them in this park, Camden Yards, against a lefty, where they're the second highest OPS in Major League Baseball, only to the White Sox. And this weekend, they pretty much dismantled what's a really good Chicago White Sox staff at home. So obviously the offense without Alex Bregman hasn't really suffered, right? I thought for sure this weekend that there would be a little bit of downfall in offensive production without Alex Bregman, but it didn't happen. They just have so many bats. You look at their starting lineup tonight. I had to pull it up about 45 minutes ago just to see who was in. And they're 1 through 7. They're just so deep at this point in time. So I'm going to go that way, John. There's no fancy reasoning. Keegan Aiken, the starter for the Orioles, over his last 2 starts has been absolutely hammered. I think his whip is close to 1.96. If you're going to put 2 Astros on per inning, you're going to be in a lot of trouble with that lineup. I could see people playing the over here, which early money did come on the over in this game. The weather's really good. Go ahead, Adam. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say this would have been my second play, but I missed this jump. Like this went from 9.5 to 10.5 really quick, and it got me off the over. Like, or otherwise I probably would have also been on this one. But keep going.
Yeah. No, the over makes perfect sense. Like I say, John, where I am, I'm about an hour 15 away from Camden Yards. The weather's really good here for baseball right now. So you could see it flying out of this place. Anybody who's ever been there and seen a batting practice at that place, it's nuts the way they just rock it out of that stadium. So I think Houston, without saying much more, is the right way to play this one. I mean, if they beat me, they beat me. But I've been so successful just playing them against left-handed pitching this year, and not even this year. I mean, they've been beating up left-handed pitching for 3 years, 4 years now. I know some of it has to do with trash cans and, technology and a lot of other stuff. But this year they're not using any of that, and they're getting the job done. So give me Houston minus 1.5, minus $1.15.
And Rob, just real quick, the over 5.5 team total for the Astros seems pretty playable too, because they're going to get 9 at-bats on the road. So that's just another thing to think about.
Yeah. For the audience listening, take that into consideration. I generally don't even look at those team totals, so good job pulling that up, Adam.
As you guys know, I don't prompt the chat room that follows us. So she said this before I actually talked about Cervelli, because remember, I didn't even know if I was pronouncing his name right. But I think somebody else is on that game too that we know. But anyway, let's go to the anchor, Joe D'Amico. The anchor. We're like a bowling team, and Joe D'Amico's the anchor.
I'm the anchor. Oh, wow. I agree with a lot of what Rob said, Adam said, John. Actually, I do like all your plays tonight. I'm going to stick with my guns once again. I do like the free play I put up today. I'm going to take the Cincinnati Reds laying a small price. I think the situation is good. One of the top hitting teams in the league against one of the worst pitching teams in the league. And I think that you're getting this line skewed, and I want to tell you why. The odds makers do not make a line that is what it should be. They make it because they know where the general public is going to move it to. Understand that. There's a big difference between what a line should be and what a line is. And I'm going to tell you now, people are going to open the newspaper and say, oh, wait, the Reds lost 4 in a row. The Twins won 4 in a row. Let's go Twins. They're taking out of consideration. Let's turn it on the odds makers. Let's take the Reds tonight. Now, John, a shameless plug. Last month, my $2 Tuesday on Sports Memo, I crushed it for everybody. I didn't want to tell you. I tell you, I was so happy. We had 500 people buy the darn play. Tomorrow, I've got a $2 Tuesday. I went to the people in Sports Memo. I said, guys, Please, I want the $2 Tuesday. I've got a matchup that I've got to put out. I'm going to put out one of the highest rated plays I put out since football. I'm not talking February football. I'm talking January football, guys. Go to Sports Memorabilia tomorrow. For $2, you can't get a lap dance on Boulder Highway. Well, maybe you can. You can get a $2 lap dance on Boulder Highway. Listen, but you can't go to Robert Kraft's masseuse for $2. Go tomorrow. $2 Tuesday. I'm putting one of the highest plays I've released all season. John and I talked about it this past week. My Western Conference Finals Game of the Year one. My Western Conference Total of the Month one. This is stronger than both of those combined. For $2, I'm going to tell you now. Follow me. Dip your toe. You'll dive into the Joe D'Amico pool.
Yeah, I'm going to the window right now and just stand there until the pick is released.
Got it.
There you go.
That's awesome, man.
Thank you.
Yeah, in all seriousness, I mean, all these guys, Rob Vino's over at wagertalk.com. He is back-to-back NBA #1 rated at Wager Talk, and we're talking a huge pond, guys. I mean, we're talking an ocean of big-time talent, and it's only been done one or two other times, or I guess we're figuring out the one, but Dave Koken was the other one, and that was a long time ago. So you go back-to-back, it's a real honor to know somebody that does that, let alone have them on the show, and then I get to have Adam and him and Joe D'Amico at the same time. I mean, what could be better? Nothing. That's the answer. Nothing. Not even the Sixers winning last night.
Oh boy, yeah,
that could have been one of my worst handicaps ever. And I'm still grateful to be hitting 65%. But I was blessed that the good Lord allowed me to fall asleep at halftime, and I did not suffer. I did not suffer. But when I woke up and saw it, I was like, "Oh my God, no! This is like South Philly's worst nightmare." But you know what? At the end of the day, you have to remember it's entertainment. It's like watching Netflix. It's like watching the one show that I just absolutely have repeatedly said I really don't like, and it's called The Bachelorette, and sometimes it's called The Bachelor, and I get confused on either one what I'm watching. But if I was a young family, I don't want my kids dating like that. Just, it kind of makes me really like, wow. I'd rather watch last night's game again. But anyway, I really appreciate you guys being on board, and make sure you guys get over to get their picks. And don't get one day, get a subscription. And you can get a great deal for 7 days or even 30 days. And invest in yourself. You're not investing in them. You're investing in yourself to get the information you need that you can use to be a better and make money for yourself and have a good time with it. All right? So on behalf of Joe D'Amico, Rob Vino, myself, and Adam Trigger, Wager Talk, Sports Memo, Predictive Playbook, and good old Manny, may all the wins be yours.